Hi, this is Rohini Rathore, and I am going to read to you from my book Leading Ladies. And today I'm going to be reading the very first chapter in this book, which is my story. I spent 20 years in an industry that is all about managing money. I was a fund manager, and my job was to invest our clients' money. At the end of 2014, I decided to call time on a job that I had once thought would be for life. In the months leading up to that decision, it had dawned on me that too many things had changed. It was time to be brave. Greatly influenced by Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I hoped to spend my career break developing habit number 7, which is to sharpen the saw. According to the author, sharpening the saw means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. It means having a balanced program for self-renewal in the 4 areas of your life: physical, social/emotional, mental, and spiritual. As you renew yourself in each of these 4 areas, you create growth and change in your life. Sharpening the saw keeps you fresh so you can continue to practice the other 6 habits. You increase your capacity to produce and handle the challenges around you. Without this renewal, the body becomes weak, the mind mechanical, the emotions raw, and the spirit insensitive, and the person selfish. It took me several years to find the right job. I used to wake up each working day looking forward to what the stock markets had in store for me. I thrived on the fact that no 2 days were ever the same. I had the opportunity to learn new skills, master different roles, and carve out my own niche from where I could add value. The market, over the years, provided a recurring lesson in humility. I faced 3 major bear markets in my time, each one teaching me new lessons and providing valuable perspective. I met clever, hard-working people at the top of their game who represented organizations that have changed the way in which we live our lives. I learned something new every day. In my capacity as fund manager, I was sometimes able to influence the way they ran their businesses. How many jobs are there that give you that sort of privilege, power, and responsibility? One of the many rewarding aspects of my job was watching companies I had invested in achieve the potential I believed they possessed. But I never grew up dreaming of becoming a fund manager or working in finance. In fact, where it all began could not have been further from where I am today. The early years, living with change. I grew up in India and came from a family of servicemen. My paternal grandfather served in the Royal Indian Navy. My father and 2 of his 3 brothers also served in the Indian Navy and the Indian Army. For the sake of her children's education, my grandmother lived in Mumbai, whilst my grandfather travelled to wherever his job took him. It can't have been easy for her spending many years in a 1-bedroom flat with 5 children, especially as 4 of them were boisterous boys. There are stories of how she had to tie the furniture down to stop her children from dragging chairs or tables to the balcony that overlooked onto a busy road from 3 floors above. My grandfather was an austere man of deep integrity. His own experience of spending many years away from his family was a reason why he pioneered a centralized educational standard which aimed at helping families of peripatetic service personnel in India. This resulted in schools being set up in major cities across the country that followed the same national curriculum with standard textbooks and enabled children like us to join from one school to another, even if they were partway through their academic year. These were named Kendriya Vidyalaya, or central schools. My brother and I owe a huge debt of gratitude to my grandfather and his colleagues because they made it possible for us to travel with our father every 2 or 3 years with very little disruption to our education, to places where his job as a naval officer took him. When you live with so much change, you experience many things that leave no lasting impression. Even though I remember some things clearly, like they happened yesterday, there are great swathes of other things and details of people who touched my life that have now simply disappeared from my memory. I remember a maths teacher at school in Delhi who took an irrational dislike towards me. She enjoyed humiliating me by calling me to the front and getting me to work out a problem on the blackboard, knowing full well that I would fail. I don't remember her name, but I will never forget how she made me feel, fearful and ashamed. I told my mother about this teacher, hoping she would tell her to back off. Instead, my mother suggested that I focus on improving myself by spending 10 to 15 minutes doing maths after school every day. You can just imagine how well that suggestion went down with the 12-year-old me. At first, I was bitterly disappointed that my mother was not willing to fight for me. Her reasoning was that if I got better at maths, the teacher would leave me alone, and I had no choice but to acquiesce. A few weeks later, when I did particularly well on a maths test, my teacher turned to me and asked if I had cheated. More importantly, just as my mother had said, once I was no longer a soft target, she stopped picking on me. I moved to a school in Mumbai in the next academic year where I had one of the best maths teachers, whose name I do remember. Mr. Balani, with his happy smiling face, instilled in me a love for the subject that lives with me even today. That experience as a young pre-teenager taught me one of the greatest life lessons. Choose your battles with care. Sometimes you can win simply by making yourself stronger, so the enemy has no appetite to fight you anymore. So I'm going to stop here. There is more to this chapter and I will come back to it in a different video, or perhaps I will leave you to read it for yourselves if you choose to. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.